I love how
This
one
is
of
great,
our
isn't it?
storytellers has to tell us what to do because we have no idea what we're doing.
Oh, we might be live because I think Andy's sharing us. Hey, we're live. Thanks, Andy, for sharing us so we know we're live.
Jesus.
This is great. I love it. It's a mess.
It's us. It's our lives. We are two messes.
Okay, so hi guys. Welcome to Storytelling with Us Weirdos. I'm gonna try to let everybody know what's in the event while I'm talking and welcoming you. I am Nikki from Pull Up a Chair and Pour Restraint, and you are
Rai from Just Pour Restraint.
You're practically Pull Up a Chair. I mean,
you don't have to give me credit where credit's not due. Pull Up a Chair isn't my thing. It's okay.
Hey, Rai, you want to talk for a little while I figure out these technical things?
Sure. So if you've never seen a Pull Up a Chair show, it's fantastic. Nikki is great at hosting, and it's a live show done wherever it's done. The first time I went to a show, it was at, where the hell was that? Theater on the Square?
Yeah, that was where it started. Yep.
Yes. And it was a wonderful show, and I'm glad that it's continued all of these years. If you've never listened to Pour Restraint, it is the podcast that is my brainchild and my passion project that I love, and it is also a storytelling show that Nikki has so graciously decided to hop on and become my team member. So it is our show, and we have got a lot of really amazing stories from both Pull Up a Chair and Pour Restraint for you today. So I super duper appreciate you and seeing what we have in store for you. I'm really excited.
You were supposed to talk a little bit longer.
Oh shit.
I know, right? It's somewhat child friendly. That that word just said there.
Oh, is it?
Somewhat child friendly, but things will come out, just so you know.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You don't have to apologize. I'm just warning.
I kind of curse like a sailor. So the premise behind Pour Restraint is we meet at a bar, and that bar is typically Lockerbie Pub. We appreciate them a lot. We booze people up, and they tell us about their lives. And I have had an amazing opportunity to hear so many stories from so many people. And I'm really good at being nosy and prying. So if you listen to the podcast, you'll hear me ask a lot of questions and try and get some backup information and really just kind of get in there. And that's a lot of fun because I'm just a nosy MFer since I'm watching my mouth. So that's that. Do I need to keep going?
No, I don't think so. I've got it shared on the Pour Restraint page and my page, and it's somewhere in the event. So people will find us, or they won't. Whatever. I was only kind of listening to what Rai said, but hopefully I'm not going to repeat everything that you just said. But we have a kind of a mixture tonight. We've got some stories that were told at past Pull Up a Chairs. We have one audio story that has not yet been released on Pour Restraint that we're going to have. And then Mary submitted a new story for tonight as well. We've decided not to tell full stories because we don't want you getting bored and leaving us, because we don't know how this live thing works. And so you'll hear us just talk, like we do, about whatever we talk about. So, you ready to get this started?
I am.
Am I supposed to get it started?
Yes, you are.
Oh,
Janice
good. See,
Janice is up first.
And then I don't follow it. Okay. So, I know, this is great. We're totally professionals here. We're going to start with a great, talented, wonderful person, Janice. Janice told this story at, I don't know, third pull up a chair or something in 2017. And I wanted to start with a story that's going to make people laugh. So hopefully you can see my screen and you're going to hear Janice's story. It's quite fantastic. Let's go with that.
Hi, friends. Hello.
This buffering is what I was afraid of.
You know what happens.
Hello. Hi. Okay, so my story, I'm going to just dive right in because the clock is ticking. So my story is a true story, and it is actually the story of the most embarrassed I've ever been in my entire life. Embarrassed is not even the right word, like mortified, horrified, crawl into a hole and die moment, pretty much. So it has to deal with something that we all do every day, sometimes a couple times a day. It's something completely natural, and it's weird because it's something that our body just does without us even worrying about it, yet there's such a stigma and taboo about it. We're not supposed to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it. So we're going to talk about poop today. Yeah. Like shit, scat, poop, turds, whatever you call it, we're going to talk about it. So it's something super, super important that everybody does. Everybody poops. Everybody poops. There's no mystery. There's no man behind the curtain. Everybody poops. Everyone in this room at one point in their lives has shit in their pants. You have. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you, but you have. When we were tiny, tiny humans, we shit our pants. It took another human to clean us up, put new pants on us, so that in an hour later, we just shit our pants again. Everybody in this room had to be taught how not to shit your pants. It is our first act of self-control. Rule number 1, don't shit your pants. Just don't. So that's like the first thing that we have control over as humans, is don't shit your pants. It's easier said than done. So our poop is so important, and we make jokes about it, we call it cute names, but in reality, it is like a major window into the health of our body. It would be awesome if we had invisible bodies. It'd be creepy, but it'd be awesome, because we could see what's going on in there. We could diagnose things with like 5 seconds of seeing that. We could diagnose Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, IBS, gallbladder disease, everything. I talk about poop a lot. I'm not embarrassed about it anymore. You can't really be embarrassed when you have to do things like a self-administered at-home poop test that your doctor sends you home with. And that's just a cute name for, here's a brown paper bag with a plastic basin that you're going to put in your toilet, you're going to poop into it, then you're going to put these gloves on, take this little wooden stir stick that, hope to God, doesn't break. You're going to dig around in different parts of your poop, put those different parts in these little plastic vials with your name and all your information on it, social security number, everything, put it in these vials, drive it to the lab, where they then put it into a nice little refrigerator before they can test your poop. That's not even the most embarrassing part. So when you have something like going on in your stomach, whether it's, an intestinal flare-up, gas, whatever, you can't be embarrassed. And we get embarrassed so easily when it comes to this stuff. Everybody poops. It's not a big deal. So my most embarrassing moment takes place one day. I wake up and something's happening inside. I don't know what it is. It could be the flu. It could be food poisoning. It could have just been an intestinal flare-up, which happens. You wake up and all of a sudden your shit's all out of whack. There's nothing you can do about it. So for hours I am in the bathroom pooping, because everybody poops. And I like to look at my poop, because our poop tells tells us really important things. Are we hydrated enough? Are we getting enough vitamins? Are we having an absorption issue? Are we not pooping? Because that's a red flag too. So it tells us all these really important things. What's the texture of our poop? Does it float? Did it sink? Is it one piece? Is it multiple pieces? Is it not even solid? Is it just water coming out your butt? These are so important. And if we just look in the toilet and like, hi poops, just give a little wave and take stock of what's going on in there, it can tell us a lot, right? So on this day in particular, we had someone somewhere really important to be. Now I can't remember what it was, but it was like funeral important, like we have to be there. And it was a drive from our house on the far east side all the way up to Carmel, which is really far when you have explosive diarrhea like every 5 seconds. So I take as much liquid Imodium, ginger ale, ginger tea, saltine crackers, Tums, everything, right? So I can just walk out the door. I get to the car, about to leave, you know what? There's just always that one more time. You just always have to go one more time. And you just pray that that's it, that that's done. How can there be anything left in there? How, like, does it restock and you're not even noticing? Like, how can there be something in there still in my body? So, go in one more time, come back out, think it's fine. We leave. Big mistake. We get about a mile from our house, and I start to feel this feeling, and I feel things like cramping and getting like that weird like vibrating cramping where it's like, oh no. I look to my husband and I say, maybe I think I have to poop. And he says, oh, I can just turn around, I can go back home. Dude, I don't think I can make it home. So, game time decision. We're coming over this hill on 56th Street, and I see it. I see the letters B, P, gas station. Yes, that is where I need to be right now. Turn. I don't care if the light is green, just turn. So turn to the gas station, get out of the car, run in there, go to the bathroom, knock on the door, jiggle the handle, because even though it's chaos and emergency, we still have manners. I hear inside a little voice, someone's in here. Of course someone's in there. Of course. Game like just seconds away from disaster pants. Of course someone's in there. So I wait a good 30 seconds and my posture starts to turn into something resembling more like this. Just jiggle my handle, knock on the door. Oh God, let me in, woman. And I hear, I'll be out in a minute. Bitch, I don't have a minute. I have 3 options. I can, 1, just stand here and shit my pants and cry. Number 2, see what I did there? Number 2, I can just bang on this door and jiggle this handle until whoever's in there lets me in. I just barrel past her and I just kick the door in, right? And just beeline for the toilet. So, option 3, use the men's room. If you're a woman, this sometimes is an option, but you're like, it's a gas station bathroom, it's a men's room. What? I don't even care at this point what kind of shape. There could be pee on the ceiling, I don't care. So, knock on the door, jiggle my handle because manners. No one responds. Open the door a little peek, just, because voyeurs, I don't know. So you open the door, no one's in there, run in, lock the door, the coat and the purse don't even come off. Just pants down on the toilet, devastation. Now, I think talking about this stuff is hilarious. I see a couple of you get very uncomfortable. And it's okay, because why? Because everybody poops. And this was like devastating, crying, shaking, sweat, like, oh my God, I'm dying. Meanwhile, my poor husband's just sitting in the car outside the parking lot, just like, we gotta get to Carmel. So, after I'm done, the cramping has stopped. The feeling of glass moving through, pain through the intestines is gone. Stomach feels good. Nausea has lifted. The sweat started to dry, and hands are a little more steady. So, take some toilet paper, I clean myself up, pull my pants up. I'm good. That was the last of it. You just know. Sometimes you just know when it's done. I'm feeling good, feeling great. Turn turn around, I go to flush the toilet, and I see a sign taped to the wall. It's about this big. It's about a Post-it. And it says, "Toilet broken, please do not use." You know, fear is a really funny thing. All of a sudden, the nausea came back, the sweat was pouring off. What the hell do we do? So all of a sudden, I become an engineer, and I take the back off, and I'm jiggling the handle, and there's a ball in the thing in the pool, and if I can get water from the sink, I'm looking for a bucket. And all of a sudden, I'm like, this, I don't know, stop, Janice, what are you doing? So I take a deep breath, and I think about what I'm gonna do. Husband's sitting in the car still. So I take a deep breath, pull myself together. I open the door a little bit, just making sure nobody's waiting in line. And I do what any rational, mature adult would do. I turn the light off, save that energy. I open the door, and I fucking run to the car as fast as I can. Now, I'm not built for speed, but I ran as fast as I could. Get to the car, I just fly out of the gas station. I could have been a shoplifter, they don't know. Fly out of the gas station, get to the car, open the door, flop in the car as I'm putting my seatbelt on. Go, go, go! And everyone's like, oh my god, we're just trying! Like we're in Fast and Furious. Once we're in the car, I tell them the whole story. We can never go to that gas station again. And at that moment, it wasn't that moment, it was like the next day, because it was mortifying. But after the fact, and I told the story out loud, and I was in this moment of crying and laughing because I was crying and crying because I was laughing so hard, just this mix of emotions, I realized, everybody's been there. Everybody's had that finish line situation. Everybody's had tummy problems. Everybody shit their pants, right? Everybody poops. We've all shit our pants from little tiny babies. So what is everybody embarrassed about? Nothing. Nothing at all. So the next time you worry, is there going to be a bathroom there? Is it one stall? Is it two? Is it next to the kitchen? What if I have to? It's okay. I'm telling you, just say, Janice said it's okay. I'm putting here because she said it's okay. Next time you go in the bathroom and you poop and the things that we put in our mouth go through our body and they come back out, and, oh, hey, Corn, what's going on? Just wait. Just check it out, because there is so much knowledge, and there are websites. Actually, prevention.com has a great little infographic of your poop and what it should look like. And I'm telling you, it is the key to healthy living, just looking at your poop, because everybody poops, man, and poop saves lives. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Okay, that was Janice.
It was Janice. Everybody poops, man. I love Janice. She's one of my favorite storytellers. She's fucking hilarious. Oops.
I love that we could hear you laughing in the audience for that show.
I'm a loud laugher.
Oh no, but I love it.
Laugh in any audio of anything. Actually, funny story. We went to go see Risk, and they were recording, and they played one of the recorded stories on the podcast.
Oh yeah.
And you can hear me laughing in that one too, because I am obnoxious, and I'm okay with that. I've learned to live with this person, so it's fine.
It's fine. Okay.
Gotta love a good poop story.
That seems like that's actually my entire day today. I was editing a very similar story for a future Poor Restraint episode today. So like, poop is my day. You know, it's fine. It's fine.
It'd be like that.
Oh, God.
All right.
Take me back to when I was a kid. Or when I had a kid, a baby kid. I have a kid. You know what I mean? I might be a little nervous because I'm also trying to fix like issues and go on to the next story. It's a whole thing. I'm trying to do everything. I need a tech person, I know, next time.
But you are a tech person, and that's why I need you, and that's why you're a part of what I do. So we appreciate you. Thanks for making sure this runs, because I just showed up all pretty and shit. Well, you're doing all the actual work. So thanks for that.
Well, why don't you maybe intro the next story while I get it ready?
Okay, cool. The next story is from Andy Sturm, and he told it on Poor Restraint. I cried. This is one that is a bit near and dear to my corazón, as one would say, my heart. So I'm really happy that we're playing it, and here we go.
And this one, they came and did it for Poor Restraint, so it's just audio. So I have this nice little thing, but Andy, I believe they should be on chat there if you want to talk to Andy. And here we go.
Growing up, I was never really that close to my dad, but the last few years had changed, and we finally, a couple years ago, we went and played poker together, and it started kind of a tradition between us. Growing up, my dad and I, we weren't, like I said, we weren't close. He was raising me as a single father, working 50 plus hours a week at a bank to try to make ends meet, with me going to elementary school and middle school and trying to come to terms with the fact that I live with my dad and I don't get to see my mother very often. And my mother wasn't always around either. She wasn't great at showing she wanted to be a parent. So it was really tough on me growing up trying to develop that bond with my parents. Well, a few years ago, my dad reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to go play poker up at a place up on the north side. Do you want to come play with me?" I was like, "Sure, why not? You know, it'll be fun." So I went up, and my dad had been playing there for a couple months, so he had started to get to know everybody and was kind of a regular. And when I got there, he didn't introduce me as his son. It just was kind of a, it was just me introducing myself to everybody as just, "Hey, I'm Andy, how's it going?" And we played for a little while, and then about a month or so into me going there regularly, I'd started to get to know everybody, but most people still hadn't made the connection that, hey, these two guys, they look, talk, and act really similar. I wonder if they're related. Nope. There was like 3 people who had made that connection at this point in time. So nobody really knew that we were related or that we knew each other outside of poker. Well, we get put on the same table this night, and we're playing, and my dad's hitting a streak of bad luck. He's getting good cards, but then getting beat later on in the hold'em hands just because he's not getting the cards he needs, or somebody gets a card that they need on the river. But I'm having the opposite effect. I'm having some weaker hands, some weaker cards, but I'm turning out and playing well and had a decent stack. I didn't have the biggest stack at the table, but I had a decent stack. So my dad is what we like to call a tight, aggressive player in poker. He doesn't bet often, but when he does, he's got it. And he will go big because he just wants to make sure that you either have to have it because you're going to be playing for a big stake, or he's just going to take the pot. So my dad's the first to act, and he puts out a really big bet. It's just about half of his remaining stack. And a couple people fold around, and it gets to me, and I have a decent hand. I have a hand that I like. I have ace-4 of diamonds. And I'm thinking, okay, it's just good enough hand that I can call and see what happens with the first cards that come out. So I call. And the guy next to me then calls as well. And then everybody else folds. So there's 3 of us playing. The flop comes up, which is the first 3 cards in Hold'em. And it comes up ace, and then jack of diamonds, 10 of diamonds. So my dad is first to act, and he goes all in. He sits and thinks for a little bit, and he goes all in. So that instantly makes me think he's got a really good hand. He's either got a high pocket pair, He's got an ace and something. He's got something really good. But I'm also thinking, I have the top pair. I also have 4 to a flush. I'm sitting really well, and if I call this, I'm not going to lose a whole lot of my stack. So I call. A lot of people would tell me later on this wasn't the right call, but I liked my hand, I liked my chances, so I went with it. The guy next to me, he re-raises over the top of what my dad went all in for. So now I'm thinking, well, I'm kind of screwed because if I fold, I just lose everything. But there's the chance that I'm going to lose because not only did my dad go all in, this other guy went over the top. And so that shows me that I may have the weakest hand at the table right now. But I'm also what we call priced in, which means that if I call what he has, I'm going to end up getting way more than what I put in. It makes sense in the chip stack terms to just kind of call and just see what happens. So I call. So my dad's just kind of sitting and waiting. The next card comes up, and it's an inconsequential card, literally nothing. And so I check. I pass it around to him, and the other guy checks as well. And so now I'm thinking, okay, maybe he wanted to push me out after the first round so that he could just go one-on-one on my dad and maybe try to take the pot because maybe he doesn't actually have something good. So I'm feeling a little bit better about my chances, but I still only have a pair of aces and I have like a 15% chance of hitting a diamond to get the flush. But I'm feeling a little bit better. The next card comes up and it is a diamond. It's like the 8 of diamonds or something like that. So I hit a flush, five cards of the same suit, which is a pretty strong hand in poker. So I check, waiting to see if the other guy wants to make a move or, see what he wants to do, and he raises pretty big, and that again leads me to think that he's just trying to push me out so he can take what he can get and hope that he beats my dad. But I know I have the best hand possible right now. There's no other connector cards, so nobody can have a straight. There's no pair on the table, so there's no chance that somebody could have a 4 of a kind or a full house or anything that would beat a flush. So I sit and think for a minute, and I already know what I'm going to do, but I sit and think and make it look like I'm thinking and trying to figure out what I want to do. I end up going all in. And the guy kind of looks at me and just looks at his cards and just shakes his head and folds. So I already win that part. So in poker, when you are at the showdown, whoever makes the first move is supposed to show their hand first. And then the responding player can choose whether or not they want to show. And if they do show, then typically that means they have the better hand. So my dad looks at his hands and looks at the table and, looks at me going on and goes, "You flushed it on the river, didn't you?" And so he hadn't even shown his hand yet. I showed my ace 4, my flush, and he throws his cards on the table and goes, "You son of a bitch." Now, I'm laughing at myself at this point because that's my dad. I'm like, yeah, okay, it's kind of funny to me. I beat him and whatnot. So I start raking in the chips, but everybody at the table is looking at my dad like, why did you just say that to this person you've barely met during a free poker game? And somebody says something along those lines. Another guy at the table goes, "Hey, dude, you need to calm down. It's just free poker." And my dad looks at him and goes, "No, you don't understand. That's my son. I can say that because his mother is a bitch." And so now I get 6 sets of eyes at my table looking my way, and a few other people from the other table next to us looking at me for validation. Like, did he really just say that? Are you going to let him say that? All I could do was just shake my head and go, well, I can't disagree with him.
I mean,
growing up, I was never really.
I guess we only need to hear it once. And I just wanted to let you know that there is more to that story that Andy added on about their mom that's going to be on the podcast. So that's like a teaser to make you stick around.
Yeah, make sure you listen and tune in because we love them and we love that story specifically. And I had no idea what anything about poker was, and they definitely laid some knowledge during that story. And I was like, And I went home and I Googled everything, and I still don't know anything about poker, but I kind of know what they were talking about now. So, yay.
Yay. I like that it's a poker story that doesn't go so deep into poker that you don't know what they're talking about. That's what I liked about it. I don't think we're sucking too bad, Ray.
Huh?
I don't think we're sucking too bad.
No, I'm having a great time. I got some wine right here in this awesome mug that Liz Weinstein made for me. Well, not for me. I bought it from her. And I'm just boozing and having fun with everybody, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. So let's keep this ball rolling.
One of the things about Poor Restraint is we started out the podcast always saying what we were drinking, but it was always the same thing. And here we are, and you got different on me. I'm drinking the same thing.
But
you're being different.
I had whiskey earlier. Yeah. So we're keeping that the same. I had whiskey earlier
with a diet lime
down. I didn't want to get too lit, as the youngins would say. So I'm mellowing out with the wine. So speaking of the first time I ever saw Pull Up a Chair, it was the show with the story that we're about to see from Roger Rowe, and I loved it. I loved this story so much because I had listened to Risk and I was searching frantically for some sort of storytelling in my own city, and I found something and I took my date there, and I don't give a crap if he enjoyed it. I loved it so much because you get things like dance, you get things like somebody playing the frickin' oboe and telling an amazing story. So I'm going to shut up about it. And here is Roger Rowe.
Okay, and this is from 2016. That's how long we've been doing this stuff.
So I grew up in Texas with a brilliant and very competitive older sister and equally brilliant and very
I hope it does that thing where it gets better as it goes, like the last one. Because we have a couple more of these.
very competitive older brother. So when I was little tiny, like 2 or 3 years old, they would come home from 4th and 6th grade and teach me everything they had learned. So I could read, and I could add, and I could subtract, and I was ready for kindergarten. I was ready to destroy kindergarten. Bring it on, kindergarten. And then in the meantime, however, something else started happening, which is I started to stutter. And so by the time I actually got to go to kindergarten, something was wrong with me. Now, I've always been very good at pretending, but that's a whole other evening of stories, so I won't get into that here tonight. But I did learn a few things about pretending in the way that I talked. I learned that I didn't stutter if I used a big, phony accent. I didn't stutter when I spoke in rhythm. 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 And I don't stutter when I sing. And I don't stutter when I sing. Well, guess who went into band and choir? Playing the oboe became a refuge and not. I've played the oboe. And especially for 13-year-old me, gay became really good at it. I started to figure out some incredible things. All the time I had spent when I was younger with, okay now, Roger, we want you to take a deep breath and let some air out over your vocal cords to unlock your throat. Let's do that together. Let's take a deep breath and then start to speak slowly. And of course, me earnestly, Alabama, Alaska, started to become this. Probably the best one of all, typing. My mom teaches typing. Became thank God that I stuttered. Now, before too long, people started to ask me if I would teach oboe, and I reached a sort of other crisis of confidence. I would be perfectly happy just sitting in an orchestra, because in an orchestra you don't say anything. You sit and nod and play and nod and play. But I have 2 parents who are teachers and 3 grandparents who are teachers and a husband who's a teacher, and it's kind of in my blood, so I thought, well, I'll step out and shoot a mystery of it and try it. And you know what I found? Nobody cares if I stutter. In fact, my students think it's kind of admirable and kind of cool. And when I say, okay, Rebecca, I think you can go back and just try it one more time, and this time really find a place inside you that feels real. Like if you're telling me you want this to sound melancholy, then let's go for more vulnerable, and sing even more.
Okay, that was Roger. I think that maybe it froze or something. I'm not quite sure. But I'm going to reshare for the next video, so that will be fine.
And I heard every word, and I was just as touched as the first time that I heard that story.
That's
Love it.
I love that that's from one of the first shows, and it's still one of my favorite moments. Roger couldn't be on the stream with us tonight, but when I asked if we could use this story, he was so excited that we were using it again. I know that as of 2016, he had been with the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra for 21 years. I'm not sure if he's still there, but he's been doing this elbow thing a while. Just a little bit. And that also reminds me of, art helping you overcome big difficulties. I had the worst fear of public speaking. I still don't love it, but so bad that when it came down to taking speech in college, I just dropped out. Like, that's how big of a fear of public speaking I had. And I'm going to say that burlesque and storytelling are what fixed that for me. Because, yeah, I'm scared, and I don't, like, even now when there's nobody looking at me, I don't love the actual act of doing it, but once you get out of your comfort zone and you do something, it can help you do it again. And my love for burlesque and my love for storytelling and pushing myself through that is kind of what helped me get past that. And when I did take speech, I got an A. So thank you, burlesque.
I got an A in speech too.
I'm not going to talk about the fact that he kind of phoned in the class and like we watched Les Mis in class, but I'm going to say that it was me and overcoming obstacles. That is what did it, not the easy class. Not at all.
So one of my favorite things about that particular story is talking about being vulnerable, because that's one thing that I've had to learn over the last several years is how to be vulnerable and how to not be so guarded. That's really amazing. But also, like, my burlesque career has helped me in so many ways. So when I first started burlesque, I was coming out of a really bad relationship, and I had lost all of my confidence. I had lost a lot of the things that made me the person that I am. So getting into burlesque and getting into storytelling is something that I didn't even know that I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. But getting into burlesque specifically has given me the confidence that people are like, oh my God, you're so confident. You're so confident. It's like, honey, it's hard to get there. It is so hard to get there. And like, they're like, oh, you take your clothes off in front of people and it's fine. And I'm like, but it's so hard to get to that point where you're vulnerable enough with the audience to be able to show yourself in that way.
And that's any art form and vulnerability, absolutely. Not just burlesque.
Absolutely. And with storytelling as well, one of the things that makes it so good is the vulnerability and the relatability. And one of my top priorities as far as a host on Poor Restraint is to make sure that people are being as vulnerable as possible, because it's uncomfortable. But as soon as you let out all of that all of the things that are building up within you, and it's just like, oh, once you release it, it's like a complete catharsis, and it feels so good. So, yeah, that's my little whatever that was.
So, who is next, Ray?
Who is next? Oh my God,
Paige.
God, I freaking love this story. It's one of my favorite stories ever in existence. And I don't even want to ruin it, but geese are freaking evil and everybody knows it. But this is so heartwarming and I just love this story. So I'm going to shut up about it once again and let Paige Scott tell her own story.
If it works.
Like she said before, can we just show of hands who believes
Maybe while it's buffering.
that geese are the agents of Satan? Yes! Yes! So, everybody's telling God stories. I want to tell a little God story with my goose story. So, when God created the heavens and the earth and decided he was going to make this troublesome specimen called man, he also made a deal with Lucifer. God said, I made one complicated nuisance, and then I made other complicated nuisances, and then I let that one thing name the rest of them. So, Lucifer, I'm going to give you one. And so Satan snickered and was like, because that's what the devils do, they're like, and he took the dirt from the earth, shaped a base, shaped a neck, a head, and a beak, covered it in feathers, and presented it to God and was like, nailed it! So as you can see by my little sermon and my little origin story that wasn't put in Genesis, I don't have that high regard for these creatures. They are mean, they hiss at you, their poop is disgusting. So the story I'm going to tell kind of conflicts with everything that I hold near and dear according to my heart. So it starts, I used to work at a processing center on the west side of Indianapolis. And surrounding the building was this swampy-like area. I mean, it wasn't like a lake, but it was murky enough to attract geese and other like woodland creatures that like those kind of things. So there was this family of geese who would just hang around the entrance of the building, and some mornings I approached that entrance in absolute fear. So like, picture me as like 8 a.m., like I have coffee and a messenger bag in one hand, and there's just 4 or 5 geese just hanging out, waiting, lurking, and they can hear you as you approach, and they just turn their heads. You can't sit with us. So you stop there petrified, mean, and it's like Tombstone in the OK Corral, because you're just like frozen, and they're frozen, there's there. They look at you, you look back, one cocks its head, you cock its head back, you blink, they don't blink because they can't. You just stay there, and that's I win, that's what you say to them. And then bam, you just run straight through the door, runs right through them. They'll just part ways, they'll scatter around, feathers flying, and you just better hope by the time you get to that door that the security guard isn't taking a nap. Because if they're not there, they're just gonna rip you limb from limb. And then at that point, you're like Muldoon in like Jurassic Park, like shoot her, shoot her. Just at the door. And then once you're finally in, it's not that bad. And you turn around and they're just there waiting. Next morning, next time I got you. They continue on doing their goosey things. Hell they do. So, needless to say, these creatures frighten me, but I'm going to talk about one of these geese and a man named Chris. Now Chris was sort of an IT specialist at the processing center, and he was kind of like every man. He kind of had like this heroic swagger about him, and it wasn't like a Ryan Gosling and Crash heroic. It was like Paul Blart and Mall Cop. Yeah, like you know the type, like confident, sure of himself. But Chris had a nicotine addiction that he was not going to let anything or anyone disturb that habit. He was not afraid of the geese. The geese ruled the entrance and they ruled the smoking area. And some of the people like aren't as brave as Chris. I mean, some of them stayed inside, some of them vaped, some of them got the patch. Not Chris. Not Chris. He was going to have a good old-fashioned cancer stick, and if he got squawked at, he was going to squawk back. Now, remember the fable that I told you at the beginning? I think the reason for this, I will explain this to you scripture-wise. So, man was created by God, and geese were created by Satan. And Chris, being of man, he knew that he was on the side of righteousness, sweet tobacco-flavored righteousness. And if there were a battle between him and the geese, he knew that the geese would lose. So one afternoon, he was out on his smoking break, and one of these geese separated from the family and just squawked at him, like, said the goose. Chris said to the goose. And the goose looked up and was like, nope. The goose said back, not gonna happen, toots. Swagger. And this back and forth went on for 4 or 5 times because Chris just liked to address animals like things. And he stumped out his cigarette, looked at the goose, and the goose looked back, and they were both sizing each other up. Chris swaggered and just went back inside, doing his human things. And after a few weeks of this routine, the goose kind of grew accustomed to Chris like breaking the protocol and invading their territory. And like Chris was just gonna smoke and it was gonna be fine. And this same goose would come up and just sit next to him and would waddle to his feet and just be calm. And the goose looked up at Chris and was like, and then Chris said, love. And he took a long swig, and then he looked at the goose and was like, what you thinking about? The goose said. And after that, it never was the same, for in that complacent sigh of that goose cast a spell on Chris that was unbroken, for that goose decided it was going to imprint on him. So when Chris went back into the building, that goose lost its flipping mind. For hours, this goose would just squawk at the door, and she would not shut up until he would come out. And it happened all the time. And like, he would come out, what do you want? The goose would just look at him, not say anything, and then would be quiet. And then he would come back, and then the goose would lose his flipping mind again. And it happened in the office room or around the office at this point was that this goose was Chris's crazy girlfriend. And so they named her Lucy. It's Lucy Goosey because we have no imagination. You all saw that coming. What are we going to name the goose? Lucy. special about Lucy. Yes, I'm praising a goose. She was smarter than the other geese. When she cast this spell of imprinting, she memorized his scent, but also memorized like his frame and would follow him from window to window and actually memorized his patterns. So if he needed to go to the copy machine on the other side of the building, she would appear magically in the window just squawking like, just like praying that the sound of the Xerox machine would drown out his crazy girlfriend's so that carried on for a long time. But another thing that was great about Lucy is that like she also memorized when the smoke breaks were. So like when it got to the smoke breaks, like she'd just be sitting ready waiting for Chris to come back. And she would be quiet and we would all know in the office because it was quiet. And after a while, like after a couple of weeks, like Chris was no longer, he wasn't smoking. He kind of arranged his day not for the smoke break, but to hang out with the goose. So, yeah, I know. Sweet. And so, like, one afternoon they sat real quiet, and I really enjoyed this, Chris said. Lucy said, and at that moment, Chris made up his mind and he began to devise this brilliant plan. And he oddly felt responsible for this goose because, I mean, like, because of him, she's a squawking mess when she's not without him, right? Right, girls, right? So he'd not smoked a cigarette in almost a month, and he was like, maybe this goose is good for me. I'm gonna take that as a sign. And like, but she was no longer hanging out with the other goose family, so like it wasn't the fact that she was uncool, but you know, animals are weird. And they make up their own rules, and geese are evil. So, and he thought, I have an apartment complex with a lake. She could stay there, and I could take her home with me, and then she could fly south for the winter, and she could fly back in the springtime because she automatically knows, right? So that next day he brought birdseed and a cage, and he had a spring in his step, and everybody in the office like knew, like, oh, this was the day. This is the day. We're gonna have to hear this squawking ever again. It's gonna be amazing. And Chris was like, yes, I'm gonna get my goose friend. It's gonna be amazing. And he got out there with the carrier. He put the birdseed down in the carrier, and he knew that there was something wrong. And then he went to the side of the building and he found her, and there were claw marks on her. And a raccoon killed her in the middle of the night. And I hate geese. But there was something about this goose that kind of inspired me, because like I was kind of in a spot where I'm like, I don't know whether, I don't, like in my own romantic life, I'm like, should I go after this thing that I want? Should I? But I'm like, God damn it, this bird's doing it. Why am I? It wasn't just a sad day for Chris, it was like a sad day for that whole office, because yeah, what I just said, we were so happy, like, thank God the squawking is gone. And then the squawking really is gone, and the office was very, very, very quiet from that point on, and like it just kind of lost its personality. I guess what I'm saying with this story is that I don't know if there is an algorithm to why some people get what they want and other people don't. and when it comes in love, but like in having the capacity to love. But I guess it is, that capacity to love is everywhere, even in the satanic heart of a goose. So that's the end of my story.
Oh God, that story. Whew.
I
I
thought
thought we were gonna cry over.
like happy. That didn't end like super happy.
You're
I
right,
love that story nonetheless, but
we laughed so much.
we really did.
That's the point, is that we laughed
It was
so much. Oh God, tears. Since the funny thing is, since Paige told that story, I pull up a chair, it has become a whole show called what was it? Honk Squawk Love. That's what it is. It was supposed to premiere at Diva Fest this year, but of course there was no Diva Fest, so that didn't happen. But I hopefully that story is going to be a bigger, better like project that you'll see somewhere soon. Paige does amazing work with theater and everything, so you'll see that again. And
there will also be no indie fringe, in which I was supposed to act in, thanks to our next storyteller, who was like, I bet you could act. And I'm like, I don't think so. And she's like, I bet you can. And I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, just do it. And I'm like, okay. So more details to come later.
And that is also funny because Mary Karty, who is our next storyteller, our last storyteller, because I didn't want to keep you guys all night. The play that you were going to be in for Fringe started out as a story on the Pull Up a Chair stage as well, I believe. So, and I directed a play that she wrote for Diva Fest. So these all tie in, and it's so fun the way the theater world works. But Mary actually recorded a brand new story for us. And so I don't see why we can't just go ahead and get to it now, even though it's the last story and I don't want to end, but we'll do it again. So let me go ahead and, I'm talking and I can't get my tech ready. Hold on.
Unmentionables. Unmentionables
Yes.
is the name of the play that is not happening at Indie Fringe this year because there is no Indie Fringe, but it will happen in some capacity.
Okay, then I think we're ready. Mary's ready. Look at her. She's sitting there ready. Here's Mary Karty, guys.
Growing up in the 80s, in the Midwest, I didn't know any women. I knew mothers and teachers and church ladies, but no women. Women who knew themselves and knew what they wanted and how to get it. Women who dressed to be noticed, or women who dressed just for themselves. Why, they were only in movies and magazines I wasn't allowed to watch. Mothers and church ladies, they dressed their bodies like an apology. They dressed in so much polyester and nylon that I'm sure they would be perspiring under all those layers until they're red in the face and had to fan themselves. It wasn't because of their delicate nature they were so intolerant of humidity. It's because they were hot. And I'm sure that they would never let their true form of their bodies to ever be hinted at, or even let their skin breathe, or their calves see the light of day without a second's shear of skin to hide them from scrutiny. By the time I was a preteen, I was too tall to be and too big to be a girl. I thought the girls were small and live creatures that danced around in fields and picked flowers to the joy of their mothers and the pride of their fathers. I was angry and I was insolent, and I was pretty much a bother to anyone to be around. I was neither girl nor woman. I was just this amorphous blob that would dress in pastel pink that my mother bought, so people wouldn't think that I was some sullen boy if I was allowed to wear the jeans and black t-shirts I really wanted to wear. It didn't help that my mother was super religious either. At home and in church, I got the message that to be a woman was to be cursed. Eve was made from Adam's rib, so she would forever be grateful to him and would forever serve him. Pretty sure that wasn't really for me. any other woman in the Bible who wasn't accomplished to a crime or murder like Jezebel or Delilah were doting mothers and grandmothers that just prayed and prayed for a baby. In fact, that's where my mother told me that babies came from. Prayer. Any sex education that I did receive was from public school health class that was always preached against in church, or pamphlets at the library, or magazines like Cosmopolitan, or Sassy, which is really an 90s alternative girl's answer to Cosmo. Although I tried to be devout, I don't know if I fully embraced it. My piety was more or less just to avoid being hassled or lectured by my mother, avoid the judgment of my church peer group, and honestly, because no one was offering. Does it really matter your resolve or will if no one was offering you to sin with them? It was pretty much invisible. I remember praying to die in my sleep or for the rapture to happen and go to heaven just to avoid the sheer boredom of Christian teen purity. In one of the magazines I perused at the library when I was supposed to be researching like migrant birds or something, I took a quiz at Cosmo about what my signature lip color should be and what does that say about me. I took the quiz in pencil because it was the library, right? And to my surprise, my signature color was passion pink for the cheerful optimist with just a bit of sass. Well, I was surprised, of course. I really thought that I was the more vixen, dangerous, plum, crazy type. But how can you argue with the ironclad wisdom of a magazine multiple choice quiz? And let the fates decide. Of course, I was 13. I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. My mother did, though, sometimes. And it was less for beauty as much as a defense against imagined imperfect skin and expectation of rosy cheeks. I would sometimes watch her from the passenger side of the car as she applied makeup in the rearview mirror, applying paint, lip brush, and lip gloss. Watching my mother put on makeup was less made her from a beauty to absolutely stunning, and it seemed like less of a beauty ritual, more like a magic spell. She would never believe the reflection in the mirror who told her who was the fairest of them all. My middle-aged mother seemed much more younger appearing than her peers and far more exotic and beautiful. Although she did believe she was much heavier than what she thought was appropriate. It made me ache that she didn't see it. And it made me angry that she didn't see any of her features in me, her daughter. Only the poor genetics of her husband for whom she no longer loved. I knew I did not want to embody the self-hate that passes virtue of the church ladies and mothers around me. I would look around and I saw all kinds of people. I saw pretty people, and ugly people, and weird-looking people, and they were all coupled up. Some of them seemed perfectly happy in their imperfections. Surely beauty did not equal love all the time, right? I knew there would be no ushering into womanhood by the elders of my tribe either. Every symptom of puberty I tried to hide up and cover and hide from my mother and the world around me with increasingly bulkier and uglier clothes. I knew I would have to face the horrors of my changing body alone, with only a health textbook and back at issues of fashion magazines to guide me. I knew anything like eyeliner or blush would surely give me away, but there was that promise in that tube of lipstick, the cheerful optimist with a bit of sass. I became obsessed. I imagined all the flirty kisses and the lipstick smudges on glasses and to kiss to seal love letters I would never send to boys who didn't deserve them. I knew I couldn't just go down to the drugstore and buy my allowance. Even the shame of waiting in line where only the cashier would see my amorphous, blobby, frowny face buying lipstick was just too shameful and embarrassing. I knew if I was going to commit the sin of vanity and of wearing lipstick, and before I was old enough or allowed, I'd have to steal it. I might as well double down on sin. If I was going to go to hell, I was going to earn it. I wasn't going to get there on a technicality. I had planned it for weeks. I knew where the lipstick was located in CVS. CoverGirl, not Maybelline. Maybelline was for old ladies. I got just the right sweatshirt with pockets, but I didn't worry about being noticed no one was looking at me. So I swiped it. My fingers were so quick, it was like I was swatting a fly. And I walked out that door just as bold as I could be. On the walk back through the field next to the subdivision of my house, that tube of lipstick burned in my pocket like a lump of lava. I swear it almost pulsated with the promised sensuality and wrongness, like the still beating heart of my enemy. That night, I waited until everyone was asleep. I got up, still in my pajamas, and I put a towel underneath the door jamb so the light wouldn't escape. I turned on just in my reading lamp. I was very careful not to wake anyone. I put on lipstick in the mirror of the antique hand-me-down vanity. Applied the lipstick. I dabbed, and I smiled. I hardly ever smiled. I stared, and I stared, until I convinced myself that I could be pretty too.
I hear Ray's sirens. They're not my sirens. That was Mary, guys.
I live downtown. There's always... But also, believe it or not, the first thing I ever stole was lipstick. It wasn't cheery with sass or however that was described. And it wasn't black, as many people would probably assume. It was like a red lipstick because I wanted to be like super, like saucy and, ferocious. That's not how I was when I was a teen. But I wanted to be that way. So the first thing I stole at a CVS was a tube of lipstick. So Mary, you are not alone in this entire story. I felt this in my being because my parents were also very religious. So not this religious, but they were also religious. So love the freaking story. So relatable, at least for me. Thanks, Mary.
And watch out for everything Mary does. Mary's a writer and a storyteller and everything. Just look for Mary Karty. You'll find her doing something amazing. Something.
Yes, you will.
I think we're done.
We are done.
I don't like that we're done, but we've held you here longer than we promised to hold you here. So, as is my way, the show ran long.
CVS should really have better security, is what Mary said. I got caught, so they've had pretty good security. I got banned from that CVS for I don't know. I tried to go in there 2 months after I stole it, or I tried to steal it, and they were like, no, you can't come in here. And then after 6 months, they're like, all right, fine, fuck it. You can come in here, whatever. Just don't steal anything. So
maybe if they didn't spend so much money on long receipts.
Probably. Well,
Mary wants us to do this more.
Yes,
we want you to.
This was fun. I had fun, but also I'm kind of tipsy, so you always
That's
have
the
fun.
point of poor restraint.
Yes, that is the point of poor restraint. Thank you to every person who tuned in, every person who's going to tune in and listen to these stories. We really appreciate it. The support is super helpful. Obviously, it's super appreciated. We love it. We're attention whores, so please give us all the attention. But also, if you listen to the podcast as it is right now on Spotify or any place where you get your podcast, things are going to be changing. We're restructuring. We're coming back. Everybody loves a good, triumphant comeback story. We will be back super soon. And I'm really excited about it. We're restructuring everything. So if you listen now, it's going to sound even better here in the coming weeks. So just bear with us, and we appreciate all of your support.
And there will be more pull up of chairs. It's not dead. It's just on a hiatus because poor restraint's more of a focus right now. Because I love it, and I love Ray, and we are both so glad that you tuned in, and we're going to do this again, whether you like it or not.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna stop this whole thing.
Love you guys.
Cranky.